Well, it's time to move on from the backyard brawl and begin Big 12 play as West Virginia prepares to travel to Lawrence, Kansas to take on the Jayhawks. And in this episode 44 of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show, Jonathan and I are going to break down the game, give you our keys to victory, our key positions to watch, and our key Mountaineer player that needs to perform well in this game. And we're finally going to give you our score prediction at the end. And we're going to do all that in this episode of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show right here on Couz's Corner. Jonathan, what's up?
Because this was a fun one, right?
Yep.
What a win last week. That certainly, especially after the Ohio game, that certainly was a shot in the arm, not to probably just Rich Rodriguez and the team, but just to the fan base in general. So these are always fun, especially after a win. So this week's much better. And we'll talk about this. How quickly can you turn the page, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's conference play. The win was great, and we'll break that down quickly. But the team, like ourselves, have to turn the page, and now it gets real. Conference time. So
Yep.
these are always fun coming off a win. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Especially
Absolutely.
that win.
Yeah,
So
that was a big one, man. That was huge. Which we'll talk a little bit more about that because that might actually play a role in this game too, which we'll
sure,
talk about later.
sure.
A little spoiler there, but let's just really quick. We'll do a brief recap of the backyard brawl win, man. I just I was at the game. I know you watched it at home. What was it like on TV? Could you tell it was a great atmosphere?
Yeah, you could, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that for me and those of us at home, it was very, very similar in a lot of ways to what you guys were in the stadium. It was it was a roller coaster. Um, we there were times where you felt, especially early on, you felt West Virginia still struggled to move the ball, but the defense was playing well. Um, and you thought, for me, I just kind of had the feeling if West Virginia could just do enough, right? Like the defense was playing so good, they were active, and we'll kind of maybe I will a little bit sneaker touch base on this, but Rich Rodriguez kind of made some questionable decisions. And so then it was just up and down, and you never know when a game gets into overtime. And both teams I felt like were tired, um, but um, but it was a wild ride, that's for sure.
It definitely was in a very emotional game. But I mean that game. I mean it basically came down to me as just West Virginia outlasting Pitt.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think at the end of the game, Pitt wore down more than West Virginia did. I think West Virginia wanted it a little bit more, maybe at the
yep.
end.
It's a good point.
And hats off to Nico and Ty Edwards and several other guys. Grayson Barnes, shout out to you, by the way. You said he was going to be the key player to watch, and boy, did he step up.
Yep,
I think he ended up with 5 catches in the game, but he had 2 really big ones
on that
there.
final drive. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
including the game tying touchdown. So
Yeah, it was good. And I would say to both of our credits, we talked last week, and then maybe we'll put a bow on it. We did mention that West Virginia had to run the ball. And boy, did they ever. And as you noted, shout out to Ty Edwards. And you know what? A little bit of love to the West Virginia offensive line. It looked rough early, but I've actually felt like as the game went on, they played better. We talked about the defense having to play well, and they did. And then we also talked about who's hard edge, right? I mean, coming off of a disappointing loss to Ohio, you had to quickly turn the page. And I think we found a few, if not a lot, of guys that are hard edge, right? Because they could have quit in multiple times during that game. And so, hey, surprisingly, Couz, it turns out that you and I, at least a little bit, know what we're talking
yeah, a
about.
little bit. Other than the fact I predicted West Virginia to lose the game,
Well, you brought that up. I wasn't going to say anything, but there was one staff member that did pick West Virginia.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not going to
yeah.
say who it was. I'm
Yep.
not going to mention any names.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You just have to go back and read.
Well, I
No.
would pat you on the back, but I can't do that from here. But
but it was understandable as to why you maybe would have questioned West Virginia, but even more so just drills home the point of how this team was able to bounce back, right? And
yep.
so that springboards us into this week, and we'll discuss any the carryover, what happens.
Hmm. Yep. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, before we get to the keys, just a brief overview of the game. You can see for those watching, it's scrolling along the bottom of the screen. The game is set to be played in Kansas, of course. set to kick off. It was at 6 p.m. Eastern on FS1, I believe.
Yep.
West Virginia right now, according to DraftKings Sportsbook, as we record this, is a 12.5-point underdog. Now, that's actually come down some. It was up to 13.5 yesterday. I've heard some say it's actually been up to as high as 14 on some sites. So, for whatever reason, it's come down a touch. Maybe the announcement about Jamoy Robinson playing is, maybe that's made a difference. I'm not sure. But nonetheless, it's down to 12.5 right now. Obviously, we know that can move and change at any moment. And when you look at ESPN right now, they have Kansas on their indicator matchup predictor with an 80.6% chance to win. West Virginia only 19.4. I just can't believe the spread on this game, even from the get go. It's unreal. What are your thoughts on that? First off, before we get into the,
I mean, either they think that West Virginia just got a fluke win at home. Pitt's not as good as maybe they had predicted, so the win didn't mean as much. Maybe they're thinking something that maybe at least I'm going to discuss a little bit. How do you bounce back? Or they're just saying that Kansas is that good of a football team. And it is true. It's obviously at Kansas. Would be curious to see what that line would be if it was in Morgantown. First Big 12 opener, not their first game in the new stadium, but their Big 12 opener. So it'll be a good crowd. It could be a multitude of things. I am shocked at it, actually. I was thinking 7, 6.5, 7.5. And who knows? Again, we're recording it a little late than usual, Thursday, but come Friday night, early Saturday, that could change, but a little higher than I would have expected.
Yep, agreed. And even Kansas folks that I've talked to were surprised by it.
Yeah,
they thought it was a little high. Even though they think Kansas is better, they did think it was too high of a spread because they do see some things that West Virginia does that could pose problems for Kansas, which we'll obviously talk about here as we go. But let's go ahead and jump into the 3 keys, Jonathan, for a West Virginia victory. What's your first one?
Yeah, so I've kind of alluded to it, and I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are on this. If you don't actually have it as well, is you just can't have an emotional letdown, right? I mean, it feels like we see so many times when, regardless of the sport, but a team just really has a big emotional win, an upset, a come from behind, a rivalry game, and then it's a quick turnaround, right? And so I'll be curious to see how West Virginia plays in this game, especially early on, because Kansas is going to be ready. That they're coming off of a bye week. They played Missouri pretty tough their last game. Missouri expected to be a pretty good team and a contender in the SEC. So how does West Virginia respond? That's going to be the biggest thing for me. Did you just peak so high that you just kind of you bring yourself back down? You're back on the road. Last time that happened with West Virginia, obviously a disappointing loss at Ohio. So I'd be curious to see. I would have preferred after last week's win, the way it happened, I would have preferred to have this team back at home, so that if there is any sort of letdown, you'll have an home crowd, so the Mountaineer faithful there to pick them up. It's not, unfortunately. So I'll be curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, well, no surprise. I've got it too. Mindset, emotions, no hangover. You cannot let the excitement around the Pitt game, the emotions. You've got to be able to put that to bed, move on, somehow try to find that same excitement, or at least come close to that same excitement, same emotion, to be able to get up for this game. Because if you don't, Kansas will beat you. Kansas might be a better team than Pitt. I mean, we obviously don't know yet, but they appear like they might be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got to be able to get up for this game. Personally, I think the fact that they're such big underdogs will help with that.
Mm-hmm.
Rich Rod and the staff will use that as motivation.
Yep.
It's the first time Kansas has been favored by double digits over a Big 12 team. I think they said since 2008 or 10, somewhere along in there. It's been a really long time. So, and West Virginia is on the other end of that. So that should be motivation for those guys. Hopefully it will be. There are a lot of seniors on the team. So hopefully, they'll be able to gather the troops, so to speak, and keep their mind right. But again, they're all human. They're young men, ages 18 to 24, 18 to 22 in most cases.
Yeah.
So, it can be a roller coaster of emotions, but hopefully they can keep them in check and be up for this game and play it just as hard as they did last game. I will say this though, Lance Leipold the last 2 years is 4-0 off bye games, including two top 10 including two top 25 wins. So he knows what he's doing coming off of buys. But I also heard, and shout out to the guys at over at Ear Sports, I heard this on their show this morning. Apparently, Rich Rodriguez is 4-1 in bye games, or 4-1 when his team is coming off, I'm trying to think.
Faces a team coming off bye week.
Yes. Faces a team coming off a bye week. Yeah. So he's no stranger to this situation. Obviously, he's been around. He's done it. So maybe there's that shows you that he has a way of keeping his guys mentally sharp, ready to go, even though the other team might have a little bit of an advantage as far as prep time, right? So
yeah.
I think that speaks volumes. So something's got to give, but I think that might also help explain why the spread is what it is. I think they probably looked at Leipold's record coming off of bye games, and that might have went into that a little bit. But nonetheless, obviously we've already had the same thing, same answer right off the get go in our first key, which is mindset and not having a hangover from the Pitt game. What's number 2 for you, Jonathan?
Yeah, number 2, and actually, crazy enough, I had it last week, and it feels weird to go back to back on this, but West Virginia has to continue to run the football. Listen, a couple things I would note here. Number one, I think we are all pretty satisfied and happy with how Nico turned the corner, if you will, in that fourth quarter, late in that fourth quarter, especially. But I do still think there's some concern and some question marks at the quarterback position, because I do think Rich Rodriguez is still going to want to tweak a little bit and find those times to get a shot in the arm. And so, are we going to see the Nico in week 1 and last week in the fourth quarter, or are we going to see the first half of last week and the Ohio game Nico? And I know there's some other intangibles there with the offensive line, and I understand that, but it's all part of that. What are you getting from that position? So that's part of the reason why I say West Virginia has to run the football, is because they have to take a little bit of pressure. You look last week, I think some of the success Nico found late in that game was because of West Virginia and Ty Edwards being able to at least present that they can run the football.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I would note for the second part of that, Couz, is Kansas, one of their weaknesses on defense, if they've given up a lot of rushing yards so far this year. You go back 2 weeks ago against Missouri. Missouri ran for over 260 yards against them. They actually had 2 players run for over 100 yards. Something else that was interesting about that, over 5.5 yards per rush. So not only are they been able to effectively run the ball, they're getting them in a good average and large chunks, 63 yards on one and a 32 on the other. So they're able to get big gains against them. So is this an opportunity for the ground and pound with Ty Edwards and then maybe sneak Bowers in there for one of those longer plays? We'll see. But I think to alleviate some concerns at the quarterback position and still some along the offensive line, and because Kansas is a little vulnerable at rush defense, I think West Virginia has to run the football.
Yeah, I like it. And, I was digging deep into some stats. And this is, even though I agree with that, I don't necessarily have it as one of mine, but I totally agree with it. And as I was digging into the stats, West Virginia has had some struggles tackling at times on their one of the the defense has played great, but one of the things they have not done so well in is tackling.
Yeah.
Well, Kansas, same thing against Missouri. They missed a lot of tackles in that game.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was by their guys at that second and third level. So if Ty Edwards can get to the second and third level of this Kansas defense, I feel like he can get some chunks. Now, we all know that's going to fall on the O-line. Not to get too far ahead of myself here, but, can the O-line get him to that second and third levels? We'll see. But, Ty, hopefully he can run the ball as strong as he did. I noticed he came up as probable or questionable one on the injury report for today, which I found ironic because Coach Raw, I didn't think he was injured at all.
Yeah.
But anyway, hopefully he's playing in the game, but
yeah,
because if not, that could change everything. But as of right now, we're assuming he's playing.
Yeah.
But I do agree that running the football is going to be critical here. But my second key is success on third down. When you look at these two teams, they're two of the worst in the country in getting off the field on third down offensively. One's 123rd in the nation. One's 124th in the nation. I don't remember which one's which. It really doesn't matter at that point. But when you look at third down defense, West Virginia is not 19th in the country right now in third down defense. So that right there, that should be an area where West Virginia can win that battle. West Virginia's defense against Kansas's offense on third down. Kansas is 91st in the country in third down defense. Now, I don't think they've had as many third down attempts against them. So, and again, they've only played 3 games, so the sample size is still small. But they haven't done as well defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the game that West Virginia finally has more success on third down? Even against Pitt, they didn't have a lot of success on third down. Both teams were horrendous on third down in that game. Can they finally find some success? Some of that's going to be, can you have success on first down and second down? It's critical that I think third down is going to be a critical or third down defense and third down offense, both really are going to be critical in this game. And whoever has the best success offensively on third downs is going to have a much, much higher chance to win the game.
Yeah.
Which ties into running the football, by the way.
It does. It does. And, one thing that we have noticed and we've discussed, and if you've watched these first couple games for West Virginia, is the defense, as well as they've played, they have struggled to tackle on time. And I think a lot of times the offense has got to help them out as well, right? I mean, you've got to be able to – the defense has to – it's amazing to me that they've been able to play as well as they have with playing so many snaps. And so it would also help if the offense could to kind of quit the 3 and out stuff a little bit and move the ball a little bit more and to help them out. But, yeah, I completely agree. Whoever's able to get off the field in third down, they're definitely going to find some success there. Agree with that.
All right, so what is your third and final key to the game, Jonathan?
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little bit of a not a shot here, but a little bit of concern is coach decision making and how he's going to implement the rotation at quarterback.
I like that.
We saw obviously what happened, and I've seen some takes from Rich Rod about why he did what he did, and I guess to some extent it's understandable. The flip side of that is he's also kind of, I don't know if double down is the right word, but he's pretty much said he's going to do it again. He's going to continue to find ways to get other players in. And I understand that reasoning, but it also raises an eyebrow and gives a little bit of cause for concern. So for me, a key point is when that happens and Rich Rodriguez been able to predict and insert at the right time. It was the wrong time, I felt like, last week. West Virginia was able to get by with it, thankfully. But I do actually think this is going to be a pretty close game. We'll get to predictions later. But an inopportune substitution or picking the wrong timing can be critical in this game, and it could be the difference. So I'll be watching to see how not only Nico performs, but when Rich Rod ends up making some changes at the quarterback position and how he rotates those guys. Has to be better than last week.
I agree. I think we saw, and again, not taking a shot at Scotty Fox because I think he could be the future of the program.
Sure.
At that position, and the kid's extremely talented. We've seen that. But to insert him in that game in that moment, I thought was I'll be honest. I love Coach Rodriguez, but I thought that was a head scratching move, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
In your rival, you're up 7-3 in a rivalry game with in front of 60,000 people. I thought it was, but I was, obviously I'm like, Coach Rod knows something I don't, right? So, and that first drive, I thought, man, that ended up being a genius move.
Yeah.
But then, boom, you got those 2 back-to-back picks. So I like your answer there. It's something I didn't think about, but at least not for the sake of this show, but I do like it. My third and final, I actually had a hard time picking my third one because I had multiple things that I wrote down here. I got to finally pick one and go with it, I guess. But I'm going to go with, you have got, and a lot of this comes on Zach Alley. You've got to be prepared for whatever Kansas throws at you offensively. last year, Kansas' struggles came a lot on the offensive side of the ball. They had a new OC with Jeff Grimes. Well, he's gone now, and they just promoted from within and put a guy named Jim Zabrowski as their new OC. Well, Jim Zabrowski's been on that staff for a long time.
Yeah.
He was there. I think he was the quarterback coach maybe under Andy Kotelnicki. He's worked with Lance Leipold now for many years or several years anyway, and he has familiarity with not only the offense but with Jalen Daniels. And we're seeing that Jalen Daniels is playing really good football. He's completing 70% of his passes.
Yeah.
He's getting yards with his legs. He's back to the old Jalen Daniels again. And we remember, I was in Morgantown in 2022 when West Virginia and Kansas went to overtime, and we lost a game on a pick six in overtime.
Yep.
Thrown by JT Daniels, an absolutely horrible decision that he made, by the way. But that whole entire game, Kansas had West Virginia defense completely off guard. West Virginia did not see – Kansas broke out the option offense, and West Virginia had no clue it was coming. Now, knowing Zach Alley the way we do, I'm pretty sure he'll be prepared for that because he'll probably be watching film from 1987. I mean, the guy is just so thorough and doesn't miss a lot of details. So I think – but man, they can get so creative. You know, what will they break out? And whatever they break out and whatever they do, whether it's odd formations, odd motions, different types of offense, whatever they do, I hope Zach Alley and this defense is prepared for it because that could, if not, it could be a long day.
Completely agree with that. And I won't go into too much detail because I may have something on that coming up. But containing Jalen Daniels is extremely important because he is the guy who makes this offense happen for Kansas for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I'm going to go ahead and jump, or we're going to go ahead and jump to the two position battles here shortly. But first, I'm going to pause for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Both the NFL and college football seasons are in full swing, and every touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Whether you want to bet on NFL games, whether you want to bet on the upcoming West Virginia game, or any other sporting event you want to bet on, you can do it right now at DraftKings Sportsbook. And for new customers, this one's for you. Bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, grab over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Your season starts now. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code COUZ, that's code COUZ, to get $300 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first bet of $5 or more. Plus, over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Do you have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY, 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, fees may apply in Illinois. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer. All right. Thank you for letting us pay the bills here. Real quick, Jonathan, what's your first position battle to watch?
Yeah, Couz, so one of the reasons why I didn't want to go into too much detail after you just talked about that, because one of them is, and my first one is the West Virginia defense, not the secondary, but the defense versus Jalen Daniels. I say the defense for this. Jalen Daniels, and you talked about it perfectly last segment. He's back to the old Jalen Daniels. And, I don't know that anybody ever necessarily questioned his talent. It was injury prone and some of that type stuff. But because he's been unbelievably efficient, right? 72%, as you talked about, 679 yards, 9 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. He's been he's managed the game really well. He's been smart with his decisions. He's been back to running the football a little bit. So not just the secondary, but also the defense has to play extreme attention to him. And as you noted, I'm something tells me that Zach Alley is going to be watching a ton of film because – goodness, how long has Jalen Daniels been around? It seems like.
Yeah, he's the Perry Ellis of
it's unbelievable. Yeah, so if you can't, and it's a tall task. It almost reminds me back in the Ohio game, right? I mean, if you can control the quarterback position for them, and if you can contain that quarterback, that's the key that drives that car. And so I look for Allie and West Virginia to have a good game plan, but I'm really watching how they contain Jalen Daniels in this game.
Yep. I like it. My first one is the West Virginia linebackers against Kansas's tight ends. Now, this doesn't necessarily it won't always be linebackers covering their tight ends, but I feel like Kansas is going to try to get into those mismatches, right, and get their tight ends, especially one by the name of Deshaun Hanukkah.
Yeah.
6'6", 245 pounds. On the season, he's caught 9 balls for 95 yards and 3 touchdowns, and most of those came in the last game against Missouri. He is going to be probably one of the primary targets for Jalen Daniels in this game.
Yeah.
And I was looking back through some of the different matchups in previous games with West Virginia's defense and how many times they've had linebackers on tight ends. And it's been, we've seen safeties on tight ends. We've seen, we've seen Fred Perry on tight ends some. We've seen Ben Cutter covering tight ends along with the other linebackers. We've seen, Kokora Tarnu covering linebackers some. So it could be anybody. But I feel like Kansas is probably going to try to make a point to exploit the linebackers because, they're probably going to look at it as a mismatch, right? Because linebackers typically are not great in pass coverage. But I went ahead and went further and decided to jot down the 4 linebackers that will probably play, middle linebackers that will probably play in this game and how they've done in pass coverage so far this year. Ben Cutter, 66.9 grade. He's actually done pretty darn well in pass coverage.
Wow.
And he has lined up against tight end some. He's been targeted 9 times, has allowed 5 catches for 40 yards on 48 pass coverage snaps. He's played the most pass coverage snaps of any middle linebacker on the team. Chase Wilson's at 58.9 grade. Reed Carrico, 55.7. And Ashton Woods is 56.1. So, none of those are super great numbers, right? Cutter, the only one really above average. So we might see Ben Cutter in the game a lot this week, especially after as well as he played last week against Pitt. Arguably, I don't even know if it's arguable. His best game was a Mountaineer last week. Was all over the field. Led the team in tackles, I believe. And based on PFF, he's also doing well in pass coverage. So Ben Cutter and or the other linebackers lined up against Deshaun Hanukkah and those Kansas tight ends is going to be a key matchup to watch here, because if they can somehow limit their pass game to the tight ends, and kind of take away the middle of the field there, I think it's going to make things a lot easier for this West Virginia defense and these especially the defensive line to get to Jalen Daniels.
Agree with that, Couz, and it's also worth noting too how efficient is Chase Wilson going to be. Been battling a little bit of an injury.
Yep.
He's limited. Popped up on I guess the injury report or list or whatever they're calling it. A lot of belief that he will play, but is he hampered? Right? How limited? So just further drives home the point of if he is somewhat limited, even though he would play, what's his ability to cover Hanukkah? And then that's going to put more pressure and lead to your point about likely seeing more of Ben Cutter covering the tight ends for sure.
Yep. All right. What's your second position battle to watch?
Yeah, I'm going to continue again. Didn't do it much on the first one, but I'm going to continue my trend to kind of be a little quirky and outside the box. I'm going to go West Virginia versus Kansas as a totality, but who wins the turnover battle? That's going to be extremely important. I'd go back to what I said earlier. I think it's going to be a close game, a very close game, actually. And we just kind of touched based on it about Scotty Fox last week and some other things. West Virginia, unfortunately, has had a little bit of bug in terms of dropping the football, throwing interceptions, putting it on the ground. The turnover bug has bitten them this season. And you just can't continue to do that. West Virginia was extremely fortunate to get by with that last week. But, boy, those turnovers came at inopportune times. There's never a good time, but they were inopportune last week and actually got Pitt back in the football game.
Yep.
So whether it's some backups running the football, backups in the quarterback position or in between, whichever team can actually win the turnover battle. And I know what a lot of people are thinking. That's almost obvious, right? But it's the little times and the little points and the moments in the games where these things don't appear to be huge deals. But when you look back at the game and the totality of it, it makes a huge impact. And so I don't believe West Virginia can go into Kansas in this environment, with Kansas being a pretty good football team, opening up conference play at home, new stadium. It's going to be crowded, it's going to be packed, and turn the ball over and expect to win. I think they got extremely lucky and fortunate to do that last week. I don't think you're going to have that same success this week on the road. And so it's extremely important to whichever team wins the turnover battle. I think's got obviously the upper hand on winning the game.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. My second one is, and this is kind of obvious, and I've probably said this every week so far, but I mean, I think it bears saying that's West Virginia's offensive line against Kansas's defensive line. I mean, you talked about the need to run the football, which I agreed with. We talked about success on third down. Guess what? You can't do any of that if you, or at least it's a struggle to do any of that if your offensive line's not helping you out up front.
Yeah.
And the strength of this Kansas defense, according to most, is their defensive line. And they do have 10 sacks on the year too. So even in the pass game, you've got to keep Nico or whoever the quarterbacks are, you've got to keep them clean. Kansas will get after the quarterback. It's been a mixed bag as far as them stopping the run. But, you know, they did hold Fresno State to 37 yards rushing in game number 1. Fresno State's a 3-1 football. I know they're a G16, but they're not a bad football team. But then, like you mentioned earlier in the show, Missouri ran it a ton on them. So, you know, what are we going to get this week? And was that, you know, is what we saw at Missouri or against Missouri what West Virginia's going to see? We don't know. But this O-line has got to get some push up front to help Ty Edwards in this running game out in order for West Virginia to have a shot to win this football game. So I'm going to go West Virginia's O-line against Kansas's D-line as my second position battle to watch.
Yeah, and I like that, Couz. And the reality of the situation, right, is that we're going to repeat ourselves multiple times this year, because the truth of the matter is, and until proven otherwise, that offensive line is a question mark, right? It's a concern, and it's such a key importance to this team because you do have a little bit of concern at the running back position, even though Ty Edwards had an excellent performance last week. But you cannot deny that losing Jaheim White's huge. You still have a little bit of concern at the quarterback position because even though we're satisfied in a couple occasions, we're disappointed in others. And so that seems to be up and down. So something tells me we're going to be mentioning this offensive line a couple times as the season goes on, for sure.
And look, they're going to continue to get better. There's no doubt about it.
And they did last week. We talked about that. They did as the game went on. And you said it perfectly, Couz. It seemed like Pitt wore down. And I think the reason why West Virginia had a lot of success, not just giving Nico time to throw late in that fourth quarter, but also been able to essentially run the ball down their throats, was because that offensive line got better and wore Pitt down. That and the fact that, I mean, you kind of like Rich Rod, you got to feel sorry for them. I mean, they were 7 deep. There were so many injuries. So I think it was a combination of things, but the offensive line definitely played well.
They played much
later
better.
on.
Absolutely, they did. They did. And you know, I didn't have this wrote down, Jonathan, but I want to mention I also think this West Virginia defensive line is important because, you know, Kansas's offensive line has struggled some too this year. I mean, they had one offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I think it was their left tackle who had a PFF grade of 10 in run blocking last week, or maybe in pass blocking. But let me go back and find that. I don't want to misspeak. But yeah, their offensive line has had some moments of their own, right?
Yep.
Pass blocking grade. I got it wrote down. It was a pass blocking grade of 10. So could we see Jamoy Robinson lined up against that guy in this game, right? I mean, again, this is not part of my key position battles here, but it is something I think we need to keep an eye on.
Sure.
Was that a fluke, or are there some weaknesses on that Kansas O-line that West Virginia can exploit? So, bottom line is, I guess it's the trenches. If you want to, I could just say it's the trenches as a key position battle for me.
Yeah.
Next thing we're going to talk about is our score prediction. Before we do that, though, I'm going to take another quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Hey, do me a favor. Go check out my good friends over at Appalachia Digital. If you need a brand new website for your small business, or if you're just looking to get found easier on Google, go check out AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz. These are the fine folks who designed my brand new website over at WVSportsChat.com. They did a fantastic job. I love their work. I think you will too. So go check them out. AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz. Let them know Couz sent you. Now let's get back to the show. All right, welcome back. Thanks to our sponsors. Jonathan, moment of truth, man. What's your score prediction for this one?
Yeah, so because if we go back and we look at the previews and the predictions that you and I do every year before the season started, it'd be like one of those if we could just go back and play it. But we discussed, both of us, that this was one, and you and I agreed on this. This was one that we really, really, really went back and forth. Right? We struggled with this. In fact, I knew this, but I actually went back and listened to your comments, and I listened to my comments on this game. And we both agreed that we struggled with this one. We actually both picked Kansas to win in this. But I will say that, again, we both said that we struggled to win. And we also said in that episode that if West Virginia did beat Pitt and was riding a wave of momentum, we had the right to change our mind. I'm actually going to change my mind, Couz.
Okay.
I've said all show, I think this is going to be a close football game. I see no scenario, hope I'm wrong, no scenario where West Virginia goes to Lawrence and beats them by 10, 14 plus points. I don't see it. But something tells me that West Virginia is not going to have the emotional letdown. Something tells me that Rich Rod is going to have his guys ready. And something tells me that maybe is just a performance last week, especially since it happened late in the game, that just says, hey, guys, we can do this. And it just feels like a springboard to maybe a little bit more successful of a season than what we had anticipated. I'm going to go West Virginia 27, Kansas 24.
Oh, wow. Another game that's going to come down to the wire.
I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be really close. I expect the defense. Listen, I don't know that this West Virginia defense is going to, and I don't know that dominates the right word, Couz. I don't know that that's right. But I don't know that they're going to be as good as they've been so far in every single game. At some point, if the offense doesn't help a little bit more, tired legs creep in, right? Injuries creep in. But I think it's not going to be this game. I do think they're going to get a little bit of a boost from Jamori Robinson. I'll be curious to see how much he plays. Goodness knows he's going to be ready. But my point is, I think the defense, even though they may not always be dominant, I just don't see them not being good enough, right, to give West Virginia a chance, give them an opportunity. Something tells me there's a little magic in this team. So 27-24 West Virginia.
I like it. I just sitting here and realized I forgot. I totally skipped the key players conversation, which we'll go back and do here in a minute. But let's go ahead and stick to the score prediction. So you're saying West Virginia wins 27-24.
Yep.
I have never had such a hard time picking a game, I don't think, since we've been on this show. I think this might be the hardest one yet. Obviously, maybe that's recency bias.
No.
Because I don't think West Virginia is a two-touchdown worse football team than Kansas, okay? I look through these numbers, and I honestly, and again, it's just numbers, right? And we're only 3 games into the season. But at this point, I haven't had a chance to watch Kansas play other than a few highlights. But I know how good Jalen Daniels is. I know how good, I've seen Daniel Highshaw play. I've seen Lance Leipold coach football. I know enough about this team to have an idea what we're going to be looking for. But I actually kind of don't hate this matchup for West Virginia from a personnel standpoint.
Agree.
But it's on the road. It's on the road. Okay. So far, West Virginia has not shown me they can play well on the road. Lance Leipold is 4-0 last 4 games off of bye weeks. It's in their new stadium. The fans are going to be fired up and cranked
Yeah.
up. Are probably going to be a sellout. West Virginia's coming off that emotional Pitt game. They are humans. They are young humans. So there might be some letdown. All of that added together, I just think Kansas ends up winning this football game. I think West Virginia is going to come out a little bit sloppy. I think they'll clean it up as the game goes on and have some good moments. But I just think at the end of the day, because it is in Kansas, because of the Pitt emotions, because of Lance Leipold's success after bye weeks, Vegas knows something that we don't, apparently. Now, I don't think it's going to be a 12.5, 13, 14-point game, but I do think it'll be in that ballpark, and I'm predicting West Virginia to win, or West Virginia to lose, rather, 34-20, 34-23 is my prediction.
Okay. Well, and I can't argue you. Listen, does this not feel like, even going back again to our first show, does this not feel like a coin toss in a way, right? I mean, it seems like if it could just almost go any way. And so the biggest question mark for me is, and you just talked about it, and we've talked about it kind of all show different times, is what version of West Virginia are you going to get? Is it going to be that emotional letdown, or is it going to be a springboard into making some waves this year and been a little bit more successful than maybe many had anticipated? To be determined, but there's no right or wrong, and I can see both sides of it.
Yeah, I do think I like your prediction, because I do think if the game is that close all the way through,
Same way as last week.
it's an advantage for West Virginia because of their physical conditioning.
Yeah.
And I even heard some Kansas. I was listening to a Kansas podcast earlier this morning as I was working. Kansas has struggled in the past with high tempo offenses.
Yep.
So that's something to be on the lookout for. But my fear is that if the offense comes out sluggish and can't get any, going high tempo offenses don't help you if you're going 3 and out, 3 and out, and 3 and out. And I think this Kansas defense, they have a lot more guys back than not a ton of starters back, but they've got guys back that are played in the program, right?
Yeah.
I just think there'll be I don't think the Kansas is going to be great by any means, but I think they're going to play a really good, solid defensive game. I still think West Virginia's offense is probably still trying to figure some things out. And again, I hope they prove me wrong, but because I'll gladly take that L. Ren Baker can hand me an L next time, right?
There you go.
And I'll gladly take it. But I just feel like the way the game's going, I feel like West Virginia's not going to keep it close enough early for that physical conditioning to play a part in it, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Guess we're going to find out soon enough.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead, and since I skipped it as the show moderator, host, whatever you want to call it here.
Can you tell it's been a long week for both of us?
Oh man, it has been. It has been. Anyway, I'll be honest with you. I'm still wore out from the game. I still haven't fully recovered, man. I've been struggling all week. But anyway, key West Virginia player for this game that we totally skipped over, but it's all right. Nobody says we got to do it in the same order, right?
Nope.
Who was your one key player for this game?
Hey, it's our show, Couz. We can kind of do it how we're
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know that we can be fired from our own show. We'll kind of do it how we want to. So we'll go about how we want.
True.
Gosh, Couz, we're only 3 games into the season, and I should know this. Again, it's been a long week. I don't know that I've picked a defensive player yet. But I do think this game is going to come down to somebody on this the West Virginia defense of a whole. I think it's going to come down to. So I'm going to go a West Virginia defensive player. How about Darian Lewis, safety? Has been really, really playing well for West Virginia. He's been aggressive. He's been physical. He's played at the line of scrimmage. He's played in the secondary. Another interception last week against Pitt. His second already on the season. How about this, Couz? Lewis is tallied interception. Back-to-back games since Beanie Bishop. Thought that was a pretty interesting little note there. So he's a ball hawk. He's been playing well. Was actually pretty close early in the season in week 1, I think it was, and getting an interception too. So he's all around the football. And Jalen Daniels is going to do a lot of things, but throwing the ball is going to be one of them, I promise you. And he's been really efficient at it. So it goes back to even the turnover battle we talked about. I think, of course, I predicted a 27-24 West Virginia win, so I do think it's going to be close. And I think the defense is going to keep West Virginia in the football game, obviously. And so I'm keeping an eye on safety Darian Lewis.
I like that pick. Outside the box, man. I
Yeah,
like it.
I like it.
I like being outside the box. But for this game, I just could not take my focus off of one guy, and it's Ty Edwards.
Yeah.
You talked about it in your very first, I think in your very first key was running the football. Ty Edwards has got to do the same thing he did last week against Pitt, in my opinion. He's got to get yards after contact. I hope he's healthy. I
Mm-hmm.
think, like I said, he showed up on the injury report or whatever. It's probable, I believe it was, or questionable. I think Coach Rod said he did get banged up a little bit last week, but he played through it, you know.
Because he ran so hard.
Oh man, and he had only played like 12 snaps so far all season and had not carried the football at all.
Yeah, it
So
was.
I mean, he willed himself through that football game.
Yeah,
Honestly,
you asked me earlier, kind of just a different question, but similar. Is what did it look like on TV? And so I don't know what it looked like there, but I'm going to tell you what it looked like from the TV. It looked like Ty Edwards, a grown man.
yeah. Well, I mean, he's been in college football for 11 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, he ran. That's true because
this is his fifth school, I think.
In fairness, I'm 43 years old and I don't run like that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
he ran hard, and he ran with a purpose. But I agree with you, and I'll let you get back to it. I'm also curious, was that just a, hey, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to show them what I got, and then it leads to that. So you do need to see more. So I like the pick.
Yeah, look, so I made that little comment in jest. I'm not picking on Ty Edwards at all. He's seems like a great young man, and obviously a great player. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not a one-off. That I do think he can do that, but can he do it week in, week out? Right? This back-to-back games, after not playing for a while. What are his legs going to be like? You know what I mean? What's his conditioning going to be like? All of that comes into play here.
Mm-hmm.
How banged up did he get in that game? We don't know the answers to any of those questions. So, and also though, we talked about earlier the tackling, the struggles that Kansas has had in tackling at times. If they continue that, maybe that was just a fluke thing that happened in one game. I don't know, but if they still have those struggles this week, there is, in my opinion, you got a back that's 6'2", 230 pounds coming at you.
Mm-hmm.
Try tackling that guy.
Yeah.
Right. So I really think, and to me, if Ty Edwards doesn't get at least close to 100 yards rushing, West Virginia has no shot to win this football game. I'm not saying he has to hit 100, but he has to be close.
Yeah. Yeah.
90, 95, somewhere in that range.
I agree. The good news about his injury, unless something popped up this week during practice, I believe they're referring to the injury that took him out late in the game, where it was in the goal line, and everybody, including myself, was wondering why is Ty Edwards not in the game. He was in the tent with, I think, an ankle, but he did come back, obviously, and we know how that overtime went with him running the football. I think it's probably just a little carryover from that, but it does lead to how Rich Rodriguez has kind of worked in different quarterbacks. Do we see Dior Hubbard? Do we see more Sincere Bowers? You spoke earlier about Kansas at that second level not being able to make the tackle and giving up these 30, 35, 60-yard runs already early this season. Is Sincere Bowers somebody that can hit that hole and break loose? Do you see Ty Edwards still run the football a lot, but not want to overwork him, right? After one game. So it's actually a great pick by you, and one for all the right reasons, actually, that somebody to definitely keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of a Captain Obvious pick, but I think it's critical because
Captain Obvious, but there's a lot of reasons to wonder because it's an extremely big key to win in this football game.
Yep, agreed. All right, Jonathan, any last words for the fine folks out there?
Not at all. Just a reminder, which one of your Gold and Blue breakdown Couz's Corner guys picked last week. Again, I'm not going to name any names or nothing like that. No, because I'm just excited to get back. I think already in an early season, it's been a fun year. What a win. And I guess I would just end, I know we're looking forward, but just unbelievable to see the videos from last week on how much it meant to Rich Rodriguez to win that football game.
Unbelievable.
Listen, it doesn't erase what happened years and years ago. That's all I'm going to mention of that game. but you could just tell after that game was over, the emotions just came out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good to see. And I even posted on social media, if there was ever a doubt that he was the man for this job, I think we can close that book, right? We can
Yeah.
close that conversation. And so it was good for him. But the work is not done. How quickly can he and the coaching staff turn the page? How quickly can West Virginia do that? And then I guess finally my thought is I'm excited to have a 6 p.m. kick. Let's get it a little bit maybe under the lights
Yeah.
and see what happens. And it gets real now. Last week was a big win, but it gets real now as you enter conference play. And if you could somehow squeak this one out on the road, you come back home and you get Utah and a chance to go 2-0 in conference play, and crazy things start to happen.
You never know, man. If I tell you, opening the conference with a W would be huge.
Huge,
I
huge.
mean, they have to go 4-5 in conference play to make a bowl game, right? That
Yeah,
Ohio loss, that's where that comes into play right there.
yeah,
And when you look at the schedule on paper with 80 new players, you don't see a ton of wins on the schedule, right?
right.
On paper, but that's why they don't play the game on paper. And by the way, I am not at all confident in my prediction. Like I said, that was one of the hardest games I think I've ever had to
Yeah,
pick.
yeah,
And I also, let's not forget I picked them to lose last week, so maybe that's some magic coming into
yep,
play here. I don't know. We'll see.
yep.
But for anybody who might be superstitious, but anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning into the show. We really appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe to Couz's Corner. Don't forget to like this video.
Yep.
Don't forget to check us out over at wvsportschat.com. That's where you'll find our written content. Jonathan and I, along with some other writers over there, are putting up content every day over there on the site. We cover all West Virginia sports, or at least the major sports. So please check us out. Shout out again to the sponsors, Appalachia Digital and DraftKings Sportsbook. Yeah, just check us out on social media. Check us out here on YouTube. And check us out over at WV Sports Chat. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf. God bless, and Q Country Roads.